question number 232.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for Trade and Industry what measures are in place to regulate the standardization of cement on the Ghanaian market. Thank you.
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Trade and Industry, through the Ghana Standards Authority, is responsible for the promotion and regulation of standards in Ghana. The legal basis for the development of standards is derived from the Ghana Standards Rules 1970, the Standards Authority Act, and the Weights and Measures Act. Against this background, Mr. Speaker, the Ghana Standards Authority has specifically put in place standards for cement production in Ghana, based on which the authority certifies cement products and undertakes market surveillance activities to provide customers with assurance of the quality and content of cement production in Ghana. Mr. Speaker, the 5 main standards for cement products are: 1. The standard for building and construction materials, covering the composition specification and the conformity criteria for common cement. 2. The standard for packaging, covering multi-wall paper sacks for cement. 3. The standard for methods of testing cement to determine its strength. 4. The standard for methods of testing cement to determine the chemical analysis. And last but not the least, the standard for methods of testing cement to determine certain times and soundness. Mr. Speaker, the above mentioned standards are used by GSA to regulate cement production in Ghana, as well as guide the process of conformity assessment through the process of inspection, testing, and certification. Mr. Speaker, it is worth noting that the GSA undertakes quarterly surveillance of the cement market in Ghana. During this exercise, samples of products from all certified companies are purchased from the open market in the various regions of the country for testing to ascertain their quality and also to check their weight. This started in the last quarter of 2019 and continues quarterly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Member.
Mr. Speaker, in the Minister's response, he listed main standards for cement products. And in the last sentence, he is talking about the fact that Ghana Standards Authority goes out there to do some weight measurements. I want to find out from him, which of the 5 standards here relates to measurement of weights? Thank you.
Sorry, did you get him? I was not clear. Can you repeat your question?
I'm saying that the minister listed 5 main standards for cement products, and I'm talking about weight, measurement of the cement, the weight of it. Which of these standards measures the weight of cement? That's what I'm asking to do.
Well, your question was on standards. They did refer to weight.
Mr. Speaker, perhaps let me refrain. And with your permission, let me read here.
I think the questions have been
He's talking about, Mr. Speaker, it is worth noting that the Ghana Standards Authority undertakes quarterly surveillance of the cement market in Ghana. During this exercise, samples of products from all certified companies are purchased from the open market in the various regions of the country for testing and ascertaining their quality and also to check their weights. But earlier on, he had given us the standards that they use in doing this. And I want him to tell me which of these standards relates to the weighing or the taking the weight of cement.
Very well. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I made reference to the standard for methods of testing cement to determine its strength. This is the standard that relates to the question that you have posed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, your committee met with manufacturers of cement, and the complaint is that there are no standards when it comes to the weight of cement. And I have taken the pain, it's unfortunate I can't mention the various brands, to weigh cement in my constituency. And I realized that there's a shortage in terms of the 50 kilograms that we are all aware. And that is why I asked this question. Now the minister is saying that they have been weighing it. Will the minister, and for that matter, the Ghana Standards Authority, will be ready to share with us the information or the data that you get anytime you undertake this exercise, so that consumers will know that these are the ones that meet the 50 kilograms that we are all aware of. Are you ready to share that with us? And when can we get that information?
Yes.
Yes, indeed, Mr. Speaker. The GSA will be ready to share that information with the committee.
Yes.
I humbly ask when we can get that information. If you can
say it will share with your committee on trade, I guess.
Thank you.
Very well. I'll proceed to the next question. It's in the name of the Honourable Member for Busa South, Dr. Clementa Park.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for Trade and Industry when the One District, One Factory project in Fumbisi in the Busa South District will be commissioned and the number of people it is expected to employ.
Yes, Honourable.
Mr. Speaker, the establishment of the rice processing facility under the 1D1F initiative in the Busa South District is ongoing, with civil works at 88% completion. The procurement process for the supply and installation of the processing equipment, which is currently underway, was delayed due to the disruption in global supply chains arising from the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Speaker, it is envisaged that the installation, test run, and commissioning of the rice processing facility will be completed by June 2022. Mr. Speaker, it is worth noting that the Fumbisi 1D1F project is one of the innovative youth-owned 1D1F companies. The factory is expected to create about 240 direct and indirect employment opportunities for the youth in the Fumbisi and adjoining communities. These will include management staff, outgrowers, seed and input suppliers, transporters, and distributors. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Minister made references to innovative. I guess when the project is finished, we will be able to speak to that. Mr. Speaker, could the Minister share with us the cost of the rice processing plant, which is currently about 88% complete?
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, regrettably, the question did not specifically request for that information, but I'm in a position to provide that to the honourable member in due course. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once the Minister has indicated that he will make the information available, I expect him to deliver on that pledge. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, Can the minister tell the House the capacity of the facility in terms of the quantity of rice it is expected to produce per day when completed?
Yes, Honorable Mr. Do you have that information readily available? I was asking whether you have. Is this the capacity of the factory in terms of the quantity of rice it can mill a day when completed?
Mr. Speaker, I'll provide that information to the honourable member in due course. Thank you.
Very well. We'll move on to the next one. The honourable member for Tamale Central, Murtala Mohammed Ibrahim.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask the Minister for Trade and Industries how much the state spent in the importation of rice and other foodstuffs into this country between 2017 to 2020.
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Ghana spent an estimated total of 6.874 billion Ghana cedis on the importation of rice from 2017 to 2020. In addition, Mr. Speaker, Ghana also imported the following food products over the same period: fish, an amount of 3.9 million, processed chicken, an amount of 1.881 million, meat, 487 million, vegetables, 281 million, and then poultry in the form of birds, 184 million. Thank you, Mr.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to find out from the Minister, based on the answers given, whether he agrees with me that we're spending close to $1 billion each year in the importation of these food items.
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Member is right in terms of the arithmetic that I provided. Thank you, Mr.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to find out from the Honourable Minister that there was a policy at the Ministry of Trade which restricted the importation of rice into this country by small rice importers. Has that ban been lifted? If it has, what has been the justification for the lifting of that ban? And as to whether that has an impact on the amount of money we spend now in the importation of such food items?
Yes, no.
Mr. Speaker, rice is a very common staple food in our country, and one has to maintain a very delicate balance between the quantity of rice that is produced locally at any given point in time and what is imported to ensure that there are no serious shortages. In that respect, we continue to monitor the production of rice locally with all the support that is provided by my ministry and by the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. And at the appropriate time, when the volumes of locally produced rice increases significantly, we'll be able to restrict, maybe not necessarily, but restrict the importation of rice. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, my question was not answered, unfortunately.
He has given you an answer. If you have one more opportunity, can you?
Yes, I asked a specific question, whether the ban imposing a restriction in the importation of rice into this country by small rice importers have been lifted. And if it has, what has been the justification for such? considering the fact that we spend over $1 billion each year, or almost $1 billion each year, by the figures you provided in importation of such food items?
Honourable Minister, is there any such legal ban on importation by small importers of rice?
Right Honourable Speaker, we have not as yet lifted the ban on the importation of rice. We have a management policy, as I indicated in my answer, to ensure that there are no shortages in the system. So as and when there's evidence of significant levels of local production, we'll be able to determine at that point, in respect of the ban, what decision to take.
You're done. Sorry.
Mr. Speaker,
You're done.
for the avoidance of doubt,
No,
I
please.
would want the answer to be repeated. Whether the
You're done, please. Kindly take your seat. Question number 408. Kwadwo member for Ho Central.
Mr. Speaker, I asked the Minister for Trade and Industry how much the ministry has realized from the imposition of fees for processing and issuance of license to import Portland cement from 2017 to 2020 in respect of the following. One, bulk cement at the rate of 175 pesos of FOB free on board value per metric ton, and two, bagged cement at the rate of 35 pesos of free on board value per metric ton.
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the export and import restrictions on importation of Portland cement regulations, LI 2240, became effective on the 28th of June 2016. The LI makes provision for the levying of fees for import licenses for Portland cement. The ministry received in April 2017 and August 2017 a total amount of 225,075 cedis from two companies for bagged cement imported into the country. The ministry has not levied or received any fees on Portland cement imported into the country since August 2017. Mr. Speaker, this year, the ministry has submitted through the Ministry of Finance proposals for consideration and approval to amend the Fees and Charges Act in respect of fees for imported bulk and bagged cement. Thank you, Mr.
Yes, Honourable.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to know from the Minister the basis for collecting the fees and the licenses, because I have LI 2240 here and I cannot find the levies. I have it in my hand.
Yes, Honourable Minister. Can you repeat the question? He says, what is the basis for the charges? Because he does not see those charges in the Fees and Levies Act. Is that right? The Fees and Levies Regulation.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I think you have repeated my question.
Who wanted that? So I'm just repeating it for you. Yes, Honourable Minister, did you get it?
Mr. Speaker, there is an import management committee that has been established in the Ministry of Trade and Industry for many years. And the committee takes decisions in respect of these matters. So it was a decision of the committee. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Kwadwo.
So, Mr. Speaker, does it mean that these fees are not publicized because the LI does not state the fees? And I combed through the big book, fees and charges. I couldn't find the rate indicated in the big book as well. What I saw was one for laboratory testing. That's the only thing I saw over there. So does it mean that when the committee determines the charges and the fees, they do not publish it? It's left with them only.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the fees and charges that were determined by the committee at that time were publicly circulated. And it's against this background that we have submitted through the Ministry of Finance proposals for the consideration to amend the Fees and Charges Act in respect of fees for imported bulk and bag cement so that it can be regularized. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Your last one.
Mr. Speaker, the minister says that he only collected these fees in 2017, April and August respectively. But I have here the 2022 financial year budget presented by the Minister for Finance, including the tables. And, Mr. Speaker, on page 300 of the tables presented by the Minister for Finance, it is indicated that there was a projection of funds from that source collected or to be collected amounting to 14,930,000, and as at September 2021, total collection amounted to 3,473,000 with a lodgement of 1,632,000 and retained 53%, 1,841,000. If the minister can match this with what he has provided in the answer to the question.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, from the statement made by the honorable member, you were making reference to a projection. I do not have the document before me. You made reference to a projection. And you also made reference to collections that were made. This was published by the Ministry of Finance. We need to reference that same material that you have and then make sure that it reconciles with the figures that we have. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. The next one is by Dr. Kinsley Nyaku, Honorable Member for Kwadwo. Question 411.
Honorable Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for Trade and Industry the current number of completed factories built under the 1D, 1F program of government and the estimated number of jobs created? Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, to date, there are 278 1D, 1F projects at various stages of implementation. Out of this number, 106 companies are currently in operation, 148 are under construction, and 24 are at the mobilization stage under the 1D, 1F initiative. Mr. Speaker, 165 out of the 278 companies are new companies or new projects, representing 60%, whilst 113 are existing companies, representing 40%. The 106 companies that are currently operational have created a total of 153,782 direct and indirect jobs, up from 139,331 in December 2020. Mr. Speaker, it is expected that when the additional 148 projects currently under construction are completed, the cumulative number of direct and indirect jobs created will increase to 288,599. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Honorable Speaker, I'm grateful to the Minister for the answer provided. However, I also want to find out from him how the 1D, 1F policy is going to cash in on the Youth Start program captured in the budget. Thank you.
What program? Is that how cash in on what program?
Talking about the 1D, 1F policy, how is it going to contribute to the Youth Start program captured in the budget?
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the 1D, 1F program could contribute significantly to the implementation of the Youth Start program using the innovative model of youth-owned 1D, 1F enterprises that I was referring to in respect of the project in Fumbisi. That's one entry point for the youth to become involved in mainstream industrial activity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful. Thank you.
The next question is in the name of the Honourable Member for Finsu South, Dr. Ezekiel Opoku.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for Trade and Industry if there are any arrangements in place to ensure that Offenso municipality benefit from the government's flagship program of one district, one factory. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the One District, One Factory program is a demand-driven initiative which is facilitated by government to assist the private sector to establish at least one manufacturing enterprise in each of the 260 districts of the country. Mr. Speaker, to date, no private sector promoter has confirmed their interest in establishing a 1D, 1F project in the Offenso municipality. However, Mr. Speaker, government's policy is to support such districts with seed capital to establish their own 1D, 1F companies. Mr. Speaker, provision has been made in the 2022 budget to support 16 districts that are currently without 1D, 1F projects because there are no business promoters. And this will enable them to benefit from the direct intervention by government in establishing their own projects. In this regard, Mr. Speaker, pending the approval of the 2022 estimates. The ministry will consider providing seed funding to establish a 1D1F project in the Ofinsu municipality with a view of offloading government's shares or interest to a private sector operator in future. Thank you, Mr.
Yes, Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm very satisfied with the minister's response. Mr. Speaker, indeed, yesterday the issue came up at your meeting for discussion, and the minister adequately addressed the issue. So I'm very satisfied and most grateful for the opportunity.
Very well. Thank you. The last question is in the name of the honorable member from Prayasu, David Ansa Opoku.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to ask the Minister for Trade and Industry what plans the ministry has put in place to ensure that the private sector in Ghana harnesses the benefits from the AFTA agreement. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, trading under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement commenced officially on the 1st of January 2021, and Ghana was the first country in Africa to establish their customs procedure codes to facilitate trading under the AFCFTA. Mr. Speaker, to ensure that the private sector in Ghana harnesses the benefits of the AFTA agreement, a national AFCFTA coordinating office has been established to coordinate the implementation of the AFCFTA in collaboration with other relevant stakeholders. More importantly, Mr. Speaker, a comprehensive national policy and action plan for AFCFTA has been developed and is currently being operationalized. This includes an enterprise support component designed to identify and assist companies in Ghana to directly target specific AFCFTA market destinations and to export to those markets. So far, Mr. Speaker, about 200 companies have been selected, and the ministry is currently undertaking enterprise-level audits to determine the specific types of support needed by these companies to enable them to produce and enter and compete in the continental market. Mr. Speaker, to facilitate trading under AFCFTA, the Ghana Revenue Authority has been designated as a competent authority for issuing certificates of origin to cover exports under AFCFTA. In addition to the above, Mr. Speaker, to ensure optimal participation by the private sector, the National AFCFTA Office has undertaken several consultations with stakeholders, with both private sector and key public sector agencies that have important roles to play to facilitate the effective participation of the Ghanaian private sector in the AFCFTA trade. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm satisfied with the answers provided by the Minister. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Deputy Whip. Yes.
I'm grateful, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a very important question, and I commend the colleague who asked the question. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Minister talked about an enterprise support component. I would want to respectfully ask the Honorable Minister to throw some more light on this enterprise support component. Does it come with some financing? Is there some financial component, like a venture capital of a sort, to support young startups who may need some assistance from your ministry? So please, just to throw light on the enterprise support component, so that as members of parliament we can also talk to businesses in our constituencies to take advantage of this component. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Enterprise Support Program includes a variety of business development services, ranging from capacity building training to support in identifying markets, helping them also to improve on their production capacity and productivity, assisting them also to access financing, which may include venture capital financing, and also helping them to identify the appropriate machinery and equipment that will be suitable for their own production processes. But, Mr. Speaker, it's worth noting, I indicated that in my response, that every potential company that wants to export under the FCFTA has to go through an enterprise level audit. So it is the audit that will determine the specific type of support that is required by each company. And that is the type of support that will be provided on a case-by-case basis to the enterprises. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Honourable Minister, thank you for attending upon the House to answer questions. You're discharged. That brings us to the end of question time for today. Yes, Honourable Deputy Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think a lot has been done today, and we are in your hands for adjournment as members are getting ready and preparing for the Speaker 9 lessons and carol night. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today is the festival of 9 lessons and carols night, which we usually have in December, getting to Christmas. So, Mr. Speaker, we can adjourn. We're in your hands for members to prepare for the festival.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, even though we are in your hands, but if we could adjourn to tomorrow, 2 p.m. tomorrow.
Is that the agreement? Is that the agreement that we start at 2 p.m. tomorrow?
Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I think that was the communication. 2 p.m. because majority of the committees need to get their report ready. So by 10 a.m. if we sit, many of the reports wouldn't be ready by then. So 2 p.m. will be ample time for us to get committees to get their report ready so that we'll be able to take it.
Very well. The House accordingly adjourned to tomorrow, Thursday, the 16th of December, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.